In 1958, a family in Charleston, South Carolina sat down in their living room for Christmas morning. Hardwood floors, a stone fireplace, deep wool armchairs, bookshelves built into the wall from floor to ceiling, warm amber light from a single brass lamp in the corner. That room still exists today, almost completely unchanged. And here is what's remarkable. It looks better now than almost anything being designed in 2026. How is that possible? What we're going to talk about today is the idea of a room that doesn't follow trends. Because it was never built around a trend to begin with. The classic American living room of the 1930s, 40s, and 50s was designed around something much more fundamental than fashion. It was designed around how people actually live, how they gather, how they rest, how they speak to each other at the end of a long day. And in the next 8 minutes, I'm going to show you exactly what made those rooms work. And why no open-plan, all-white, minimalist living space designed in the last 20 years will ever come close to replacing them. If this is the kind of conversation you've been waiting for, subscribe right now. This is what we talk about every week. Every great American living room before 1960 was organized around a single non-negotiable element: the fireplace. Not a television, not a sofa facing a blank wall, not an open kitchen that bleeds into a dining space that bleeds into a sitting area with no definition at all. A fireplace, a real one, stone or brick, with a proper mantel, a hearth, and a surround that was designed by someone who understood proportion. The fireplace did something that no interior designer has successfully replicated since it disappeared from modern homes. It gave the room a reason to exist, a focal point that every piece of furniture naturally oriented toward, a source of warmth, both literal and psychological, that made the room feel inhabited even when it wasn't lit. When you walk into a living room with a real fireplace, you immediately know where to sit. You know where to look. The room tells you what to do without saying a word. Walk into a modern living room without one, and you feel a subtle disorientation. Where is the center? Where do you look? The television tries to fill that role, but it fails. Because a television is a distraction, a fireplace is a destination. The families who gathered around those fireplaces in 1948 weren't thinking about interior design theory. They were just comfortable, deeply, naturally comfortable. That comfort had a reason. The second thing that made those living rooms timeless was the furniture, not because it was expensive, though often it was built to last far longer than anything available today, but because it followed principles that had been understood for centuries and that the mid-century American craftsmen still respected. Scale, proportion, weight. A sofa in a 1950s. American living room had presence. It sat low to the ground. It had wide armrests. It was upholstered in wool, leather, or heavy cotton. Materials that aged beautifully and told a story as the years passed. That sofa could hold 4 adults comfortably and still look elegant doing it. Armchairs had depth and firmness. A man could sit in one for 3 hours with a book and a glass and not once think about getting up, because the chair was designed for exactly that, for sustained, comfortable human occupation. Compare that to what fills living rooms today: thin cushions on low frames, fabric that pills within a year, legs that wobble, sofas that sag after 2 seasons and get replaced with something equally disposable. The furniture of 1950 was made by people who assumed you would keep it for 30 years. So they built it for 30 years. Today's furniture is made by people who assume you'll replace it in 5, so they build it for 5. The difference shows, not just in how it looks, but in how it feels to live with it every single day. If this resonates with you, hit the like button. It takes 2 seconds, and it helps this kind of content reach the people who actually care about it. The third element is something that modern interior design has almost completely abandoned: materials that get better with time. A hardwood floor in a 1940s American living room develops a patina over decades that cannot be manufactured or faked. The amber warmth that comes from 60 years of sunlight, foot traffic, and wood oil is something that no engineered flooring product has ever successfully replicated. People pay premium prices trying to achieve it artificially, and it never quite works. Because it isn't a finish, it's history. The same is true of a wool rug that has been walked on for 40 years. It compresses in exactly the right places. The colors deepen. It becomes a document of the life lived above it. Brass hardware that tarnishes slightly and then is polished back, never quite to its original brightness, develops a warmth and depth that new brass simply doesn't have. A leather armchair that has been sat in 10,000 times has a quality that a brand new leather chair cannot possess. The leather has conformed to human use. It remembers. This is what designers mean when they talk about rooms that have soul. It isn't a design decision. It isn't something you can purchase and install on a Saturday afternoon. It is accumulated time, accumulated life. The living rooms of pre-1960 America were full of materials that understood this, that were selected specifically because they would become more beautiful as the years passed. Modern living rooms are full of materials that try to look good on the day they are installed and ask nothing more of themselves than that. The fourth reason those living rooms were timeless has nothing to do with furniture or decoration. It has to do with the room itself. Before open floor plans became the dominant model of American residential architecture in the 1970s and 80s, a living room was a room, 4 walls, a ceiling with appropriate height, a door that could close, windows placed for light and proportion, not just for maximum square footage. That enclosure mattered more than most people realize. A room with 4 walls has acoustics. Sound behaves naturally within it. Conversation has privacy. The space feels intentional, as if it was designed for a specific human purpose. An open floor plan has none of this. Sound travels everywhere. Cooking smells travel everywhere. A conversation in the sitting area competes with noise from the kitchen. There is no sense that any particular zone was designed for any particular thing. It was designed for one thing only: to look large in a real estate photograph. Pre-1960 living rooms also had ceiling height and molding that gave the room vertical presence. 10-foot ceilings with deep crown molding create a sense of shelter and grandeur simultaneously. The room feels both protective and elevated. Modern 8-foot ceilings with no molding create a room that feels temporary, like a hotel room, like somewhere you're passing through rather than somewhere you live. The architects of 1940 understood that a living room is the most important room in a home. It is where the family comes together. It deserved to be designed with that intention. Every dimension, every proportion, every detail. That intention is exactly what gave those rooms their permanence. I want you to close your eyes for a moment and try to remember a room. Not a room from a magazine, not a room from a hotel or a showroom. A real room. A room from your life or from someone else's life that you walked into and immediately felt something. Warmth, safety. The sense that this was a place where real things happened, where people sat for hours without needing to be anywhere else, where the light was right and the chair was right and the whole room seemed to say, "Stay." That room almost certainly had a fireplace or the memory of one. It had furniture that had been there for years. It had floors that had been walked on by people you knew or people you wished you had known. It had walls that held the particular quiet of a house that had been lived in for a long time. That room was not designed to impress anyone. It was designed to hold people, to make them comfortable, to give them a place to be fully at home in the oldest and most complete sense of that word. We have largely stopped building rooms like that. We have decided that open and minimal and new is better, that a room should feel like an experience rather than a shelter. But if you have ever sat in one of those old American living rooms, in a wing-back chair by a real fire, with a lamp at your shoulder and a rug beneath your feet, you already know the truth. No trend has ever improved on that feeling, and no trend ever will. The living room that never goes out of style was never trying to be stylish. It was trying to be a place where a family could live well, and it succeeded so completely that 100 years later, we are still trying to understand how it was done. If this is the kind of thing that matters to you, subscribe. There is much more of this ahead. And if you know someone who has a room like the one I just described, share this with them. They'll know exactly what we're talking about.